Well, today we've got a 67 Super Reverb on the bench that needed an overhaul, and part of that process is to replace the original 2-prong power cord with a 3-prong. So we're going to show you the right way to do that today. Now I'm going to start by untucking all the wires that are up underneath the lip of the chassis here so you can see where their connections are and how we have to change them in order to do this the right way. So first, of course, you can see the black and white AC lines come into the receptacle on the back of the amp, so we need to remove these. And these two wires stay where they are. Just like that. We've got the old solder removed, so it's easier to get the new wires in and put these back in along with them. Now we're going to remove the old power cord from the chassis. And you can do this with the pliers, which is assuming you don't want to go buy the Hakko strain relief tool. If you're only going to do this once in your life, it's probably not worth buying the tool. So you can do it with the pliers by just squeezing it in between there and pulling it out. Now the hardest part of putting a new cord in is using the strain relief and getting it back in the hole. Fender uses a 16 gauge wire, which is pretty thick, and it makes it difficult to squeeze the strain relief and get it back in the hole. So we use an 18 gauge Marshall power cord. We cut the end off, strip it back, and it makes it real easy to get it all back in the hole and still do its job. So we recommend that you use an 18 gauge power cord. And there it is, prepped and ready to install. So we're just going to put the new cord in through the hole in the chassis, and we're going to put the grounded lug right on this lug for the transformer. And that's what Fender does. So who are we to say we should do any different? So we're going to get that put up in there, make sure we've got plenty of slack for the wires, and get that locked in so we got a good ground. Now we can reattach these right where they came from. There. Now let's put that strain relief back in. We just want to give ourselves a little slack, and we'll go back to the pliers. We're going to kind of pre-crimp this just a little bit, because with the smaller gauge it goes in much easier. Simple as that. So the easy part is done. Now let's get to the rest of the rewiring. Now if you've purchased any of our DVDs on Tube Amp Repair, Tube Amps 101, in Volume 1 we give you a CD with printable reference material, including a wiring diagram on how to make this change. So the first thing we're going to do is remove the wire on the near side of the polarity switch. The polarity switch won't be useful after we make the change. Of course, you won't need it. So we remove this wire, and then we take 1/2 of the power transformer that's currently on the fuse, and that comes off the fuse and goes to where we just removed the other wire. So we got to unwind this just a little bit and put 1/2 of the power transformer over here. Now while you're here, you can see the blue cap underneath the polarity switch. Well, this is probably one of the most important parts of the change, and that is to remove that cap. Now, all you have to do is snip it off the bottom here, and then snip it off again on the other side. So you can get that cap out of there. This is what they call the death cap. And they call it a death cap because with this cap connected right to ground, if it were to ever short out, you'd have AC going right to the chassis. It's not an acceptable practice anymore. It was okay in the 60s, but it's not okay now. And you need to get rid of this cap. You don't want any chance of AC going to the chassis and electrocuting you. So get that cap out of there. So now we've got half the transformer secondary on the front side of the polarity switch. The wire we took off of there, coming from the end of the fuse, is going to go right here on the other side of the polarity switch. So this wire has got to come off. Just like that. Now all we have to do is take this wire that comes from the other side of the power switch and put it to the tab of the fuse holder. Just like that. Now we just tuck the wires back in underneath the chassis so it looks right. And that is the correct way to change a 2-prong power cord to a 3-prong. Remember to get that death cap out of there, and you're as safe as you can be now. This amp's ready to gig with.